Alright, guys. Now we're live. We'd like to welcome everyone to the Debuffed Gaming News Dispelled Everquest Next Grievance Talks. And so we'd like to welcome everyone. We have me, I'm Des Shiva. We have our guild leader in EQN, that would be Steelheart, and our XO, Liet, with us. And we'd like to welcome everyone to our third podcast on EverQuest Next. And since today is September 11th, we'd like to give a shout out to all those that we lost this day 12 years ago, and also to all the troops and to all the family members who are still grieving because of that loss, and everyone who are still affected. And so we want to just send that shout out to everyone. But now let's get on to the news for EverQuest Next, and we want to get on to the most important news of all from EverQuest that just came out at PAX. And that news is, guys, female dwarves will have beards. What do you guys think of that? What about you, Liat? Do you like women with beards?
That depends on the context in which you ask the question. However, in general, for my own, okay, I would not play a chick with facial hair. This harkens back to high school with this creepy dude who had facial hair, and it's just ever since, and especially on a chick. I'm sorry, but anyway, but if that's your role play thing and that's what you want to do, all for it, baby. You tie dye it, you braid it, do your thing. I don't care. Have beard dreads, just not on my character.
Yeah. Well, we have a picture here of the female dwarves with the beard.
How to shave your beard like a man?
This
You
is
don't.
the female dwarves.
You don't shave. That's how a man shaves.
That's that creepy dude.
So that's how a
Yeah.
real man shaves his beard, is you don't shave. So I don't have a beard. I don't think Steel has a beard. But here are the female dwarves. Now, they don't really have epic beards like the male dwarf there. But what do you think of their little, chops that they got? How do you think that works? Little clean shaven. What do you think, Steel?
The one in the middle doesn't look bad. I mean, the chops. I can see the chop thing going on there. That's actually not that bad. Kind of in a hairy sort of way.
Yeah.
Those are overgrown sideburns.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Well, the other one has like a goatee going and everything, and it's almost a mustache, and so
Yeah, that's pretty hardcore.
yeah, and so,
Kind of giving Soul Guardian a run for his money right there.
Well, I was like, if you're a male dwarf, do you like to kiss a woman and get tickled by her, or do you like to?
Wait. They could get stuck,
Yeah.
depending on the setup of the hair. So I don't know. That might be dangerous or might not be.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with Cybercat. He posted the mid one looks cute. I got to tell you, I'm into the female chops.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't look too bad on that one. I don't know about the whole full beard, like the one on the left going. Maybe not, but as long as it's halfway down, it might be okay, It won't tickle you and give him a kiss. Who knows? So yes, that was one of the roundtable questions that we got, and so it actually shows that they are listening. So enough people chose that they wanted female dwarves with beards, and so they got female dwarves with beards. And so we're going to talk about just two other roundtable questions that they recently had over the past 2 weeks. And one is contested content. Now, I've played both EverQuest 1 and 2, and I remember mostly in EverQuest 2 a lot, as for my sake, of the contested mobs. Now, what do you guys prefer? How about you, Steel, as far as a guild with contested mobs, maybe like in the open world?
I went right down the middle on this one, to be honest. I'm obviously an old school EQ1 player, so I remember the days when we used to go and wait for Nagathan. Everybody used to camp their monks in the cave for when Nagathan came up, and then we'd say, put out the call, Nagi's up, and everybody form up, and we'd go down there and try to beat all the other guilds. And it was fun and bragging rights when you could do it. It really was. And for just really nice loot or really nice crafting components that you can make really nice loot from, that's really cool. But there needs to be a fair bounce of instance mobs as well. especially if they're quest-oriented mobs. I'm a firm believer if it's a quest-oriented boss, it should probably be instanced. Because there will be, as there are in any game, there will be guilds that will monopolize any contested mob that appears until the next tier of contested mobs is put into the game.
Yeah.
So, general fun, yes. For instance, no. I'd rather see or for quest, I'd rather see instance mobs.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I remember mostly in EverQuest too, when they had the open world contested mobs and stuff, and at times they would pop, but the guild would wipe on them, and so everyone would rush to that zone to try to make sure that no one got that mob, and everyone take their turns, and they'd heal up, and then they watch someone else take their turns, and sometimes you try to what was it called? You try to train all the mobs. Yeah, you try to train mobs to them and ruin up their. And
but
so
you remember how it goes.
So it was a pain, but at the same time, those are the things you remember, right? Like, okay, there's all these people, and you really felt like this was like this massively multiplayer. And so I agree with you still. I'm like, I think if it's necessary mobs, like quest mobs or something, like, okay, keep that in an instance so no one's like griefing each other, but some contested mobs to me would be kind of nice. What about you, Liette? What do you think about contested?
Well, Lemmings treatment aside, I do like contested. I think it's pretty fun to get your guild together. We call it a call to arms when we see that set up, and all the raiders in guild are expected to hustle their bustle and get on over there to kill it. I think it's really cool. Now, can it interrupt a lot of things? Well, yeah, if you're in the middle of a dungeon. But I love big contested areas. The big group dungeons that are part of the open world, I think are really, really fun because often you'll find your kind of community building that way too, because you'll be kind of hopscotching each other. And if one group dies, the other group will go, you guys are pretty cool. You've made my life a lot faster, so I'm going to get you back up. As far as raid material, I like some contested. I like it straight up for the bling and just that little bit of extra, not for progressing quests. So yeah. I'm completely in agreement there.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it's fun.
We all agree, I guess, on this thing. But because I think it needs to be in there a little bit, because a lot of the MMOs lately have just going straight instance. And so a lot of times you just don't see anybody anymore, and you don't have that competition, and so there is that world first kind of thing, but like you just never see each other anymore. And so I really hope they can go to a world where at least guilds and stuff see each other every once in a while, rather than just we're all stuck in instances. And so
Absolutely.
We'll see. Yeah, definitely. Well, the other question that they had up was, what's your favorite small race? And so maybe not as important as contested raids or contested mobs, but nonetheless very important. And so they asked us, what did we choose? And so we had the choice of Froglocks, Gnomes, Rotanga, the Erisai or Fae that were in EQ2, and the Halflings. What did you guys choose? And
Gnome.
Gnome?
Gnome all the way.
No.
Gotta be the gnomes.
Yep.
No. Yep.
Okay, good thing this isn't the World of Warcraft talk, because people would be like punting gnomes everywhere. But I chose halflings. Like my favorite, I was all sad when they got rid. Remember those starting zones in EQ2 where they had the little hobbit mounds and everything? I was like, oh, I want.
Yeah.
I wish they could keep that in and have your little halfling and you have your little home. So I chose halfling for that, and so we'll see how that comes out and see if they're actually playable, or are they just gonna have these races kind of in it. But now we're going to move on to the meat of what we're going to talk about, and that's mostly Landmark. Because the funny thing is we're all waiting for EQ next, and we're all excited about it, and we want to see more about it. But Landmark is coming out this year, according to them, and the beta is going to come out really soon. And so for everyone who's maybe not familiar with Landmark, it's basically the world of EQN. They're going to have that one continent, but then they're going to have several continents. Everyone can just use the tools that the devs use to build their own world. And so what do we mean by that? Well, they gave us a few videos on different time lapses of how these build-outs would happen. And so we're going to show 2 that took place within under an hour using just the tools in Landmark, and see how they changed the world. So here's our first one. Now there's no sound to these videos, it's just the build-outs. So this first one's kind of simple. It's just they're taking this hillside and they're showing that they're making a path. They're gonna build some things into it, and so you can see the timer there on the right. It doesn't look like they've done much, but once you see the before and after videos, it's kind of like, wow, like we had housing in EQ2 and housing in other games, but could we ever do something like this? So look at the before and the after, like how much it changes the way things look. And then the second video is, I think this is in the Firat. So at first it's just this plain landscape with the land, and then all of a sudden they start building buildings and stairs and putting trees in, and different plants, different paths. And so in 36 minutes on that one, they had the before, and then they had the after video, which makes it look completely different with all the shadows and everything. And so just from looking at these 2 videos of what you can do within like 45 minutes, what do you guys think of Landmark, or just the tools that we'll be able to use? And this is even the full-blown MMO we're looking forward to.
I know. Well, just looking at how they can alter the landscape, it's obviously a really, really, really powerful engine and set of tools. They're, as they demonstrated when they first announced EQ Landmark, or EQ Next Landmark, excuse me. You could really build it up and have your sharp edges, and then break it down and make it look weather worn. And they are here too, and it's beautiful as far as the landscape goes. It's amazing the amount of detail they can get into. I'm really excited though to see that on buildings. We've seen ruins, we've seen landscapes so far, we've seen them make pretty paths through mountains, but I really, really want to see what they do with a building. Do you build it brick by brick? Do you add beams to the roof? How does that work? And I realize a lot of that has to do with texture and fun things like that, but with the strength of the engine as it is now,
Yeah.
I think the possibilities are really endless and really amazing.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Steele?
Man, I'll tell you what. This reminds me of the preset buildings in Star Wars Galaxies on steroids. Just the ability to, like Leslie was saying, to be able to put the beams in the roofs, to color the brick, make it look new or make it look overgrown, to shape the landscape. I mean, you're talking about possibly building a castle with a giant moat around it, a city around it, buildings inside walls. I mean, unbelievable what you can do with this. It is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I cannot wait for this.
Yeah, and I just saw too that I think it was today or yesterday they asked the question of whether or not you'd like people to see this. And so could you imagine if you're just walking around the continent and you see people just start building like it's just a hillside, and you come back the next day and all of a sudden it's this epic jungle with all these different ruins, or they have their little house there and stuff. It's like it's almost like mind-boggling of what are the possibilities with this, because it's just like Minecraft, but like so detailed. It's not gonna be blocks and everything. I mean, it is little blocks, but you can smooth them out and just make them look like that. And so they were talking about how they're using the little, what do they call the little pixels?
Voxels.
Voxels. There you go. They're using the little voxels, but then they're also going to have items you can place. So they're also going to have a tree that you can place, or a bush, or a bench, or something like. They're not going to just rely on voxels for everything, and so you're going to have a lot of tools at your hand to be able to use. But now let's take a look at 2 more videos. But these are more complicated. They took more time, but we can see the possibilities. And so we just saw land, but now we're going to see kind of like you were talking about, Leah, is building out maybe a building or something. And this looks like maybe like a spot where a boss mob would be or something. So it just starts off as a hillside, but then it slowly transforms, and so they've already taken half an hour, and it doesn't look like much. But all of a sudden the path starts forming, and you start realizing what they're doing. Then they reach an hour. They kind of just got like maybe like a base set up. They start putting pillars in. They got the trees, and then like you were talking about, now they start putting the roof on and the details. I'm wondering how they're going to do the details on the sides of the floors and stuff as you start seeing them come in, and then on the sides of the pillars and everything, and so you see them add the furniture and everything. So you can either imagine someone living in there, or you can put boss mob in there, or you have to fight your way up into it. And so we're almost at the 3-hour mark now. So now it's going to show the before. So it's just a plain old rock mess. And then the after picture is like completely different. It has this built-in inside of the rocket,
Sony.
inside of the mountain, the base, I guess you would call it. But this last one I like because it's just a different setting. The other three have been outside, but this one's in the actual like underground parts of EQN, the lava area, and so it just shows what are the possibilities. It's not just on the overworld, but you can do it everywhere inside this world. So it just starts off with plain lava. Too bad this one doesn't have a clock though, so I'm not exactly sure how long this one took them. But they just start building, they make a little lava waterfall inside of this game. And so you think of like EQ2, like the housing, like how we kind of faked waterfalls and stuff, or aquariums and different things. But
Fireplaces.
yeah, fireplaces. But to look at what they could do in this, like it's endless. And people are going to be able to play in this, and people are going to be able to see what you do. And I think that's the end of the video. So what do you guys think of those two videos? The possibilities.
That is awesome. I mean, just and 3 hours may seem like a long time to some people,
Yeah.
but for what was accomplished during that 3 hours, that is really impressive. That isn't bad at all.
Well, they changed the integrity of the actual land itself, which is amazing. You look at this hillside that was relatively smooth, had some rocks going on, and in the first video, for example, here they built ruins into it, and as if they were braced in the rock itself and coming out. I think that's so sweet. And if you compare to games where you literally put up walls and decorate, for example, Sims, I think everybody is pretty familiar with Sims. You build your walls and all that. This is way more detailed. Wow, you can change the elevation at which everything happens. You can smooth it out if you don't like it. How sweet is this going to be?
Yeah, I know. And so I was thinking, like, because we're just looking at stuff that looks appropriate to EverQuest Next, but could you imagine just building, because they said you're going to be able to build whatever you want. They're going to have that specific continent that they're like, okay, it just has to look like the look of EverQuest. But on our own continents, we could build whatever you want. And so just off the top of your head, if you could think of a land that you'd want to build, what would you want to build still?
I would want to build a castle into the side of a mountain
Yeah.
with a sprawling cityscape. Basically a kingdom.
Yeah, I know. For me, I was like thinking, this is so detailed. Like I could go up to like wherever Halas is gonna be, or whatever, and I can make the. Now I can't even think the Battle of not Endor. What's the other? That would be in the Firat. But you can make different themes. You could go in the snow and put some snow speeders out there, and
Yeah.
you could be so creative and do whatever you want with this. And so, Liette, what would you want to build?
Well, I was really, really, really in love with the starting area for your wood elf, so I'd have to check out some tree houses, find the biggest tree I could find, and just pop in a house because it's too cool. I mean, I'm sorry, that's pretty sweet. Well, if you want to play an elf and you want to be a legitimate elf hippie, that's the place to be. And I always play elves, and it's always been fun for me. I liked tree houses as a kid, so of course I'd have to really deck it out, make sure you had the winding stairs going up the tree, because it's no fun if you don't have windy stairs.
Yeah.
And make sure that you could cut those suckers off if you had folks coming up there that you didn't like. Just be, no, don't like you today. And maybe it'd start with a big bar. You have to have your priorities straight and have the alcohol up there. So
Yes.
definitely starting with the treehouse bar.
Okay, treehouse bar. That's the first thing that's going to be built. And so
Yeah.
so you think of how popular, like right now after Final Fantasy just launched for Grievance, and how many people were playing that game, or after Neverwinter launched and how many people we had. Well, imagine when
Yeah.
EQ Next Landmark launches and we have Grievance, and say if we had a whole continent to Grievance Land, we could call it. Like, think of the possibilities, like what we could build, or as a guild, having everybody in there on this one land and just transforming it. If we had one mind or one idea, or everyone just go crazy, like, it would just be completely, you can't even imagine what you'd be able to build.
It's going to be a big party if that happens. I tell you what, there will be lots
Hell
of
yeah.
bars.
Yeah, so definitely. But at PAX, they talked about the world of landmark and exactly what landmarks are. And so we've seen the spires before, which I was excited about. I was like, okay, you got to have the spires in EverQuest. I remember the first time seeing spires in EverQuest 1, and it was just like amazing. Like, what is this big thing? Like, what does it do? And yeah, I remember like wanting to climb up and stuff, and then you get to the top, you don't want to fall because you're gonna die.
But then you do anyway.
Yeah,
and
you
you're
jump
going,
down.
I get a res.
Or you hope you have whatever, levitate or something, so you can just coast on down or whatever. But they talked about what the spires are for in Landmark, and they're for teleporting to other landmarks, and so maybe to another spire somewhere else in the world of Landmark, or to other worlds. So say if we had Grievance Land, or we could teleport to the EQN continent, or to some other person's continent that they've been building. And so that's what the spires are going to be for. But the other two, which are interesting, and I want to get your opinions on, are the other landmarks are crafting tables and vendor stalls. So first, the crafting tables. How do you feel about having to go to a certain spot to craft?
I think it's awesome. I think that's a big community builder. You're going to have people in a concentrated area working on similar projects. I think it'll be a great way to share ideas. If you have somebody working on something and you see in chat that they've created mystical bar stool of drunkenness, and you go, oh wow, that's pretty sweet, where'd you find that recipe? It just opens up that great chatter that I think's really an important part of building up your relationship with other players that are outside your guild, outside your general friends list. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah. How about you, Steele?
I think it's great. It's gonna add to reasons for people to go to player cities. Like Liette said, community building. If you're doing armor smithing and you need leather components, then you just kind of reach over and tap the leather worker at the level table next to you. Hey, buddy, what type of deal can I make out for you for some of them leather straps right there?
Yeah.
So it really is a community builder, big time.
Yeah, I definitely like that better than the what MMOs have been kind of going to lately, or most MMOs is kind of, you could just be anywhere and all of a sudden you bust out your hammer or whatever and you start building whatever you want. Or
Trapped on the run.
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
You're all making a tunic as you're running across the land or whatever. But as you mentioned, Steele, about maybe selling something, the other landmark are vendor stalls. Now, so we can sell, but we can not only sell just leather straps or whatever, but we could sell something we build. So remember your castle that you talked about that you want to build in the hillside? You can sell that. How do you feel about being able to sell things you've built?
Well, they ain't getting my castle, but if they want a castle made, you're looking at entire communities that could be dedicated to doing nothing but building awesome things for other players for a price.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, there's been a lot of games in the past that they've tried to have crafter guilds or this and that. Star Wars Galaxy succeeding in a lot of that, but you're really looking at a really big crafter and economy oriented game. And we haven't had one of those in a very, very long time. I mean, you played WoW and EverQuest 2 and Star Wars The Old Republic, and I'm not trying to slam those games because they're each very good games. How meaningless was crafting when you hit max level, so to speak? And I know EverQuest Next ain't gonna have levels, but how meaningless was it?
Yeah, you definitely you did all that work for what? So you can make a feast or whatever, so that you could have it for the raid.
400 in armor tech, it's like, whoopee. Let's go kill this first raid boss and get better loot than I can possibly ever make.
Yeah, but the crazy thing about it is you're not going to just be selling it for in-game money. They're talking about selling it for in-game real cash, cash that you could use, and so. We've seen a lot of these real money transaction kind of things going on in different games, and especially like Diablo, and it's not necessarily taken the right way. And so how do you feel about real money being introduced into EverQuest Landmark? How about you, Liette?
I'm all for it, and I'm cautiously optimistic that it will go as well as they plan. I think that it's really, really awesome that you can, number one, share your work. That's great. I think that's, yet again, another great part of community building. Two, hey, I'd like $5 if somebody likes my treehouse bar. That'd be cool. If I'm sharing my bar with you and you like it, I will take my $5 and be a happy girl. Yeah. So that's cool with me. I am fine with the economy extending outside the game. So there we go. Cautiously optimistic that it'll work out the way they say. I like the royalty situation as discussed, where, if you build a castle and you've taken blueprints from someone's tower and use those towers in your castle, the person who had the tower blueprint gets royalties too, and you sell the whole castle. Yeah. That's awesome and a great way to handle it, I think. So there you go. Definitely. Really have to see it in action, though, to have a final verdict.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell until you see it. But what I thought was amazing too was it's like a lot of these real money things have gone on with like armor and different things, and so people they argue about buy to win or whatever. But when you think about transforming land or building something, it's like, what does anybody? It's just look.
That's pure enrichment, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so if you want to spend money to buy Steelheart's castle and he gets $10 off of
my castle.
Okay, he's not going to sell his castle, but someone can build a tower and then they could sell that tower, and someone who only has half an hour to play every day or an hour to play every day, they're like, I don't have time to build a tower, so I'm going to spend some money and build this tower because I want to play in Landmark 2. I just don't have the time as someone else who built the tower, who built the castle, or who built a wagon or something. And so I think it's great because it's not in EverQuest, as far as we know, EverQuest Next. And so it has nothing to do with your armor or your character, but it just has everything to do with aesthetics. So you're just going to, it's your looks, it's your home, it's what you're going to use and just live in kind of thing. And so I think it will work, hopefully. So the amazing thing is Dave Jorgensen, he had a quote. He said, Landmark is all about wandering through players' imaginations. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I love it. As long as they're not all giant penises, but I love that. Yep. He mentioned it, hey.
Yeah, he did. He did. So, Steele, what do you think about giant penises maybe being a possibility of why?
I think I'll pass on that question.
Okay. But to be able to just walk through everyone's imagination, like we had Grievance Land, like to just see what everybody could come up with, it's really amazing. And I don't know if anybody had a chance to watch the part of the panels. They had the world building panel. Maybe next time we can talk about that. But they had a section of video showing the possibilities that they had, and they just gave this to everybody at SOE. They gave these tools to everybody at SOE, and Austin. These people they have no art experience. These are people that are in like QA or something or this and that. Austin, they showed this building, and it's made of ice. Like, and they're like, "How did you make a building out of ice?" And they used some material that no one would have thought of. They used water somehow and made a frozen castle out of it, and it just looked amazing. And someone else made like this grassy like hobbit looking castle, and it was like the imaginations were like endless. And so yeah, exactly, I cannot wait. And so we hope it comes out soon. We hope we get an invite soon. Keep our fingers crossed. But we know it's already September, and we know it's coming out before the end of the year. And so we just hope we can hear more news on it. And so as that news comes out, hopefully we'll have more plans as for what Grievance will do as a guild. We have our guild leader here with Steelheart, and our XO Liette, and me just wanting to be a player and want to build my own things. We'll all be in Everquest next, and so hopefully keep following us on Grievance and here at Debuffed Gaming News. And this is going to be the end of our podcast, and so we want to thank everyone for joining us. Sorry we were a little late, but thank you for watching, and we'll do this again next week at the same time, or at the right time, actually. We want to thank you again. I'm Dashiva, Steelheart, Liette. Thank you, and we'll see you guys next time.
See y'all next week.
Thank you.